Hi, it's Nonsense Nickel. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be analyzing and sharing my experience reading They Both Die at the End. So, this book answers the question of what would happen if you knew when you would die 24 hours ahead of time. We get to see how different people approach death and how they live their lives differently on their end day. In this book, a company called Deathcast is the one who calls you and tells you that you are about to die. And Mateo and Rufus, they both receive this call. They bond through an app called Last Friend. This app helps Deckers meet on their end day. They fall in love and change each other for the better and get to live the future they always wanted, if only for a day. They both eventually die, and both their deaths were to something stupid and simple, which seems weird after they survive an explosion in a bookstore and almost get shot by a gang. Mateo forgot the stove was broken and wanted to make tea for him and Rufus. He got too comfortable and started taking less precautions than he would have taken earlier that day. Rufus, he gets hit by Victor's car on the way to Altea Park because he forgot to look both ways. What's interesting to me is that their meeting didn't really change their fate. Mateo would have stayed in the apartment all day and still used that stove, and I think Rufus would have always gone to that park. And yet, they both affected each other so deeply. The idea of deathcast in this world makes it extremely different from ours. There's tons of media in this world which revolves around the end day. There are apps made for Deckers, there are places to go on your last day, hospitals give up on patients when they think they're going to die. History would change if deathcast had been made sooner. I mean, can you imagine, on 9/11, if everyone on that plane got a call from deathcast? You'd think that the people in this world would be more aware and fearful of death, but they seem just as disconnected. We can see this in the livers who go on the Last Friend app, and we saw someone even ask Mateo for his couch. They're just really insensitive. And now to analyze these characters, let's start with Rufus. His parents and sister died only 4 months ago. He'd already lost what he has to live for, his family, his dreams, and his future. And part of himself feels guilty for living, but he also feels guilty to leave his friends. He doesn't want his friends to watch him die like he watched his parents die. And even though he's just suffered a loss, he strangely has more people to leave behind than Mateo does, because he has the Plutos. Mateo only had his dad and Lydia, but more on that later. At the beginning of the book, Rufus attacks Peck. He doesn't really take accountability for this. He does feel regret, but says he wasn't fully himself. He's ashamed to tell Mateo, but he does eventually. It may not seem like Rufus has much to live for at first. He's not looking forward to a future. He wants to be the good person that he used to be. He wants to be pure, like Mateo. And this seems to be why he accepted death more easily. Later in the book, we do find out that Rufus wanted to travel the world taking photos, and he did have more to live for. As the day goes on, he has more and more to say goodbye to. His future, Mateo, and finally getting to live. His life got so much better that he's getting more scared as the day goes on. He falls in love with Mateo, but only gets one day with him. And Rufus, he also talks about the afterlife with Mateo. He says that he believes in 2 phases, and they're already dead on that last day, but then they go to heaven with no regrets. I think he's hoping for this afterlife because this life isn't enough for him. Alright, now on to Mateo. His mom died giving birth to him, and his dad is in a coma. And he carries the guilt of living like Rufus when his mom died. And when Mateo finds out that he's gonna die, he feels like he's wasted his time. But he still won't live out his life out of fear. We see this when he doesn't leave his apartment and go to that party car. He's mourning for the future that he will never have. He doesn't get to meet future Mateo, who is confident, not wasting time, and has tons of friends to say goodbye to. And he's telling Rufus about, his dreams. He said that he wanted to be an architect. However, on his end day, Rufus helps him become the future self he always wanted to be. Unlike Rufus, he's much more concerned with making sure that everything is okay after he dies. He cleans his house for his dad, he leaves notes for his neighbors, and he tries not to tell people he's dying. What's interesting about Mateo is his genuine value for life. This is why he saves the bird, and he feels like he can relate to it. He gives a homeless person money, and he gave someone his shoes. This is also why he's upset that Rufus accepted death so easily, because he seems to not value his life. He also tries to prolong his own life by staying in the apartment, even if he eventually dies there anyway. Mateo and Rufus' lives both change dramatically on their end day. They both become better people and have each other. They even agree that it's better to have one good day than a lifetime of bad ones. And one of the themes of this book is how people don't value the things that they have until they're gone. They don't value their lives until their end day. They aren't grateful for the people they love until those people are gone. Another idea I got from this book is that, life is a circle. Mateo even mentions that he didn't live his life, but he's still dying. Like how he reached the finish, but didn't leave the start, on a circle. No matter what you do, you can't break the cycle of life. You can't change your fate. There's also this idea we see of reincarnation and one of the POVs, which further emphasizes this circle. Everything and every decision is connected, and we see that with all the different POVs. This book also just has so many full circle moments. Mateo starts and ends the day in his house. He told a neighbor not to fix the stove and dies because of it. The same person who calls Rufus Victor eventually kills him. Rufus watched his family die, and then he watches Mateo die. Rufus attacks Peck at the beginning, which led Peck to almost kill him at the club. And Mateo's mom died the day he was born. Now he's going to be buried next door. Mateo warns Rufus to look both ways when crossing the street, then Rufus gets hit by a car. Rufus attacks Peck, which causes the accident with the gang, which kills Howie, which then makes Delilah realize that she needs to call Victor, which then makes him run over Rufus. There's also this idea of fate, and they both die at the end. Mateo believes him and Rufus were destined to meet, and Rufus disagrees with him at first, which confuses me because this whole thing is fate. They're guaranteed to die on this day, with nothing changing it. The whole concept of death cast is fate. Eventually, Rufus agrees. They're always meant to meet, fall in love, and die. As the readers of this book, we care deeply about these characters until the end. Then they die, and we move on with our lives, because it's just a book. We just put it down. This feels similar to the perspective of non-Deckers, or like strangers that Rufus and Mateo meet. They offer sympathy, but don't really care. And we see that with the Deathcast operators, their last friends, people at the hospital. They're strangers and would never see them again. Why should they care? And then Rufus and Mateo start playing Traveler, I think on the train, and they make the strangers they never would have thought again really mean something. And they even play Traveler with their own lives and make up the future they will never get to live. This book also shows different POVs to show the value of different people who only appear to be strangers, and the effect the main characters have on others. We see this guy with his shoes and the person who didn't commit suicide just because they saw Rufus and Mateo out living. Alright, to conclude, what should you take from this book? Make connections with other people and leave your mark on the world. Live life to the fullest. Live for your future and the people around you. Value your life and the lives of others. If you're willing to change, you can. Remember that you are part of something bigger than yourself, and be kind to others.